Good morning, everybody. I wanted to introduce my colleague, the Reverend Kimberly Debus, who is here with us this morning, to pick up where we left off a couple of weeks ago, and we were thinking in services about how to create the kind of communities we want. Well, she's going to talk about that very specifically. How does that actually look? Especially, how do we take care of each other in this time when we are separate from each other? She is a musician, a wonderful integrator of worship and the arts. In fact, she leads workshops on exactly that for Unitarian Universalists all over the country, from her home near Albany, which is where she's joining us from today. And she has a website called farfringe.com that you should absolutely check out if you love our hymnals, because she has explored every single hymn in order, and in fact is working on a book of exactly that right now. She is also the creator of the wonderful and fun hymn battle that is going on right now. So if you check out Far Fringe, you can learn a lot more about that and about Kimberly. But of course, you'll have a time to get to know her just this morning. So enjoy, and please welcome the Reverend Kimberly Debus.
It is such a pleasure to be with you today. I told the tech team I was going to tell the joke that I just came in from upstate New York, and boy, are my arms tired. Yeah, but seriously, it is a delight to be with you today. And if you're new to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Palo Alto, I encourage you to stay after the service to speak with others about the congregation, and of course check out their website to learn more about this engaging congregation and our welcoming liberative faith. I know you'll find this a friendly place, and in fact I encourage you now to unmute your mics for a moment and say hello to everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, all.
Hey, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Nice
Good morning.
Beautiful day.
And now let us begin our service. I invite you to breathe deeply as we hear these words from Gretchen Haley. Come into this place with all your confusion about how you will carry on, and also with your hope. Come with your walls up, your furrowed brow, your fear, and your belief in something more. Let the silence call you back to yourself and the sound of your heart beating. Let the songs hold you and the company all around feel like a promise, a light of a new day breaking. There is no one here who does not know that lonely place that creeps in. No one's life that has skipped anger or loss or pain. There is no one here who does not know what it is to wonder why and what if, and to want to be part of making a life of meaning, making a difference, to live all of the way alive and awake with friends to lean on. We all need this remembering to breathe, this remembering what matters, this release of everything else this time, this beauty, this beginning again. As I light my chalice, I invite you to light candles or chalices in your own spaces. Come, let us worship together. With our centering words each week, we draw on one of the sources of our living tradition. Today's words come from the Reverend Teresa Soto. In this community, she writes, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. Let us follow the sound of this bell into silence. And now, please join us as Bruce leads us in singing For All That Is Our Life.
For hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss. For each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
So far, we've made $210,100 for our congregation by appearing on game shows.
This week, we're going to try Celebrity Family Feud.
Aura, we want you to join our family.
I'm willing, but we're not exactly celebrities.
Once we're on TV, we're automatically celebrities. Let's go!
It's time for Celebrity Family Food. Introducing Aura, Emma, John, and Sarah playing for UUCPA, playing against Fanny Farmer, and now the star of our show, Greg Becker.
Welcome to Celebrity Family Food.
Did he just say Celebrity Family Food?
What's going on here?
Fanny Farmer, I'm going to ask you 3 questions about Unitarian food in 20 seconds. If you can't think of an answer, just say pass.
I'm ready.
Tell them what you're playing for.
$25,000.
What famous Unitarian published a cookbook in 1896?
I did. I published my cookbook in 1896.
Who introduced the idea of standardized measurements in cooking?
I said you should always level a teaspoon.
Who printed the first recipe for brownies?
I didn't invent them, but my book had the first recipe.
Isn't he supposed to say, survey says, and then show how many people answered the questions in the same way?
I don't think this is Celebrity Family Feud, guys. It's like we've entered some kind of weird alternative universe.
Now it's time for the UUCPA team to answer some Unitarian food questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Aren't you the same person who hosted the last game show we were on?
Don't ask me a question. I'm going to ask you questions about Unitarian food. Since there are 4 of you, you get 4 questions. Which famous Unitarian printed a cookbook with a recipe for roasted possum?
Irma Rombauer in her cookbook, The Joy of Cooking.
What famous Unitarian got the help of her women's group at church to write her cookbook?
Irma Rombauer.
Marion Rombauer Becker, who grew up a Unitarian church, wrote the 5th edition of The Joy of Cooking. What was her mother's name?
Irma Rombauer.
Here's your last question.
Irma Rombauer.
I didn't even ask the question.
Irma Rombauer.
That happens to be correct. So you beat Fanny Farmer and win $25,000.
Is this game show legit?
What do you mean?
This doesn't look anything like the real Family Feud.
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, actually...
Tune in next week and find out what's actually going on.
That was delightful. We now enter a time of caring and sharing, and we invite you to post your joys and sorrows into the chat or email them to joyconcern@uucpa.org. And we will share those joys and sorrows aloud. We have. So let us breathe for a moment. Pausing to feel our own joys and sorrows and the feelings of our collected community. Barbara Saxon says, after having watched and cried sometimes through the world premiere of Sing Gently, Barbara, I was also one of the 17,572 people who sang this beautiful song that premiered just as our service began. And I too am looking forward to seeing it and crying over it. It's on YouTube. So let us remember that there are always joys and sorrows that go unspoken for many reasons, but we are not alone as we hold one another in our hearts. Amen, and blessed be. And now please make space for our meditative hymn, Comfort Me. Our reading this morning is a poem by David White called Working Together. We shape ourself to fit this world, and by the world are shaped again, the visible and the invisible working together in common cause to produce the miraculous. I am thinking of the way the intangible air past its speed round a shaped wing easily holds our weight. So may we, in this life, trust to those elements we have yet to see or imagine, and look for the true shape of our own self by forming it well to the great intangibles about us. Once upon a time that seems so long ago but wasn't really, a group of people in Palo Alto got together once a week. As they pulled into the parking lot, they waved to those already there. As they joyfully got out of their cars and into the building, they were greeted with smiles and handshakes and hugs. Someone remembered another's birthday and handed them a card. Someone else gave out some small jars of sourdough starter that they had promised to share. Two others finally pulled out their phones to schedule a long overdue coffee date. Someone thanked another for the project they helped complete. A couple listened closely as someone shared hard news. More hugs, more handshakes, more smiles, more conversation, until the signal that worship was about to begin. And then those people sat together and sang together and listened together and spent a radiant hour together. It's a simple ritual, really, the gathering together of worship, something we took for granted before the pandemic. Our show of affection and care was almost instinctive, is instinctive. We reach out to one another, and as we learn more about one another, we know who welcomes hugs, who values a handshake, who would rather not touch but appreciates close conversation. We know who loves to give the things that they've baked or grown, and who is willing to accept the things that are baked and grown. We figure out who craves more connection than a too short and often interrupted coffee hour conversation. Such is the warmth of community we talk about in the familiar chalice extinguishing by Elizabeth Sella Jones, often shared in Unitarian Universalist congregations. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. These we carry in our hearts. Now, we talk a lot about the fire of commitment. We are a people committed to justice and loving the hell out of this world, after all. But we also carry in our hearts the warmth of community, our community. The warmth we show when we enter. The warmth that keeps us coming back, that keeps us in covenant when times are hard, that keeps us affirming and promoting our principles. The warmth of our care for one another. Now, there are a lot of ways we show care for one another. Some of you are caring for young children, raising them with love and patience. Others are caring for elderly family members, honoring their legacy and ensuring their health and safety. Some are doing both, you of the sandwich generation. Care also shows up in our attention and concern, care to avoid damage or risk loss. Some of you are also professional carers, nurses, doctors, hospice workers, chaplains, therapists, police officers, firefighters, ministers, all working in caring professions to ensure physical, emotional, and spiritual health and safety, even as some restrictions are being carefully lifted or considered or reinstated. But we all have the capacity for care because we all have affection for one another. In his book, The Four Loves, C.S. Lewis talks about affection, a characteristic of love that usually needs absence or bereavement to set us praising those to whom only affection binds us. He suggests that affection has a quiet nature, that we often take those whom we feel affection for granted. Yet affection also opens our eyes to goodness we would not have seen nor should have appreciated without it. It is, Lewis affirms, responsible for 9/10 of whatever solid and durable happiness there is in our natural lives. When we show affection for one another, we affirm each other's worth and dignity and interconnectedness. We show care for their bodies and their minds and their sweet souls. And we are in a time of absence. Let's breathe. Nancy Schaefer writes these words in her poem, Mending. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? What shall we use, and how is it in the first place you've come to be torn? Come sit, come tell me. We will find a way to mend you. I would offer you so much, sweet soul, this banana sliced in rounds of palest yellow atop hot cereal, or these raisins scattered through it if you'd rather. Would offer cellos in the background singing melodies Vivaldi heard and wrote for us to keep. Would hold out to you everything colored blue or lavender or light green. All of this I would offer you, sweet soul. All of it or any piece of it might mend you. I would offer you, sweet soul, this chair by the window, this sunlight on the floor, and the cat asleep in it. I would offer you my silence, my presence, all this love I have, and my sorrow you've become torn. How shall we mend you, sweet soul? With these, I think, gently we can begin. We will mend you with a rocking chair, some raisins, a cat, a field of lavender beginning to bloom. We will mend you with songs remembered entirely the first time they are ever heard. We will mend you with pieces of your own sweet self, sweet soul, with what you've taught from the very beginning. For some of you, the orders to stay home may have seemed like a little slice of heaven. Finally getting to clear your calendar and your nest and do your thing. Yet even for the most introverted among us, this isolation can be wearing, especially for those who are not only working from home, but also trying to care for and educate children. It's been 4 months of virtual everything with no end in sight. And even the introverts are missing their weekly foray into the flurry of Sunday mornings. And we're not out of danger. And we're still mostly isolated and missing our communities. Dr. Kimberly Norris, an authority on confinement and reintegration at the University of Tasmania, says that we've moved from the first period of isolation, a time of panic and confusion, into the second period, the honeymoon, where it felt novel and different as we learned new technology and enjoyed working in our pajamas. But now we are well into the third period, a time of loneliness and frustration. A time of hollow-eyed stares, odd fixations, and brooding resentment. According to studies of how long humans can survive in space, they find that moods drop about halfway through a mission. And when there's unclarity about when a time of isolation will end, it is even harder. Because while there seem to be some glimmers of hope, in our case, what seemed like a flattening curve but maybe isn't, the uncertainty of how long this will actually last means that this third period could last a really long time. We need the warmth of community more than ever if we are to sustain our community through this long third period. We're missing the things that make our communities warm, that make us warm. Yes, we're getting good messages for our minds, hearing good music and poetry that feed us. That's not all we go to church for. We miss the care and the shows of affection of the community that are meaningful to us. And it's true, not every show of affection works for everyone. In the early 1990s, Gary Chapman developed the 5 love languages, which identified the various ways people want to receive expressions of love. They are words of affection, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Now, as I read those off, some of you thought, oh, that one is me. And others thought, a little of this, a little of that. And that's important to know how you want to receive affection and care, because then you can share that with those around you, your partners, family members, friends, and fellow members of this congregation. You already do some of it without realizing it. Those who love physical touch ask for hugs. Those who crave quality time actually make the promises for coffee. Those who like gifts are the first in line for the sourdough starter or the freshly picked tomatoes. And it's hard right now, especially for quality time and physical touch people. But even in this time of pandemic, when the closest we get is a wave as we walk past a friend's house, or chat over a phone, or FaceTime, or Zoom, we can express affection. For those who appreciate words of affirmation, call or text or send a letter with messages of appreciation and encouragement. Express your gratefulness for them. For those who appreciate quality time, make plans for virtual coffee dates, dinners, watch parties, dance parties. Make it special and focused on each other. For those who appreciate receiving gifts, now is a great time to send gifts through the mail or leave baskets of flowers or bread or starter plants or, yes, sourdough starter on their doorstep. For those who appreciate acts of service, inquire if there are ways to help out with a meal delivery or help in the garden or repairing something, things that can be done safely and from a distance. For those who appreciate physical touch, you are my people, and this may be hardest on us. If you live with one of those who appreciate touch, do so. Hold hands, touch a shoulder, hug, with consent, of course. For those who don't live with anyone, offer affirmations and suggestions of in-home spa days, snuggling with pillows or pets, wrapping up in a shawl or a blanket. It isn't easy. Showing affection at a distance is hard. The old saw, absence makes the heart grow fonder, is real, especially for those of us who count on our weekly immersion of the warmth of community. And yes, we are showing care and have been by staying home, by following state guidelines, by treating each other with grace, by remembering that what we do now to reduce the rate of infection means we will be together again. It's important. Our bodies, our minds, and our souls need care. Nancy Schaefer reminds us that care matters for our sweet souls, our souls in need of mending, in need of attention, in need of affection. We will mend you with pieces of your own sweet self, Nancy writes, with what you've taught from the very beginning. So show care. Ask for care. Ask for what you need. Make those Zoom dates, those special times, the drive-bys. Take care. Accept it. In these hard times, it's more important than ever to sustain the warmth of community. Amen. One way we show care is through our financial support. While none of us are in our buildings throughout the denomination, this congregation is still lively and always open, and your contributions sustain this community. We invite your generosity. The order of service gives a QR code and link, and also information on using text to give via Give Lively. Thank you to Season of Us for a beautiful song and all the music today. And thank you for your gifts to sustain this congregation. I now invite you to join me in singing our closing hymn, I Know I Can.
Sibling
closing words are from Nancy Reed McKee. You may feel alone, yet you are integral, a part of this community, a part of our common fire. Your light carries through invisible microfilaments, connecting you to me. Burn on your chalice of light, of love, of deep connection. And now I extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. For these we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go, enjoy, go in love, go in peace. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I believe we're now in that wonderful time where we get to greet one another and coffee hour. Oh, benediction. I am so sorry, you all. We have a benediction. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one to evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Rejoice in beauty. Speak love with word and deed. Honor all beings.
Amen.
Amen.